Hey everyone! Welcome to the Bola ASAP channel. Don't forget to click the like and subscribe button below. Last week we learned all about ratios, and this week we'll be building on what we previously learned by learning rates and unit rates. Kindly grab any material you think will be useful for you for this video, and let's dive in. What are rates? Rate is a ratio that compares two different units. You might be wondering, what is the difference between ratios and rates? Ratios compares two different quantities that have the same units, while rates compares two different quantities with two different units. Consider this example. A bike travels 54 miles in 4 hours. Distance and time, two different quantities. Miles and hours, two different units. When written as a rate, it becomes 54 miles per 4 hours. One thing to note here is when writing rates, ensure you write the units correctly. Now, why don't you try this? You can go ahead, pause the video, and play back when finished. Sierra can make 8 friendship bracelets in 2 hours. Write the rate at which she makes the bracelets. The rate at which she makes the bracelets becomes 8 bracelets per 2 hours. 8 bracelets over 2 hours. Now let's consider the second example. If a 12-ounce can of corn costs 69 cents, the rate is 69 cents for 12 ounces. Now, the first term of the ratio is measured in cents. The second term is measured in ounces. When we write this as a rate, it becomes 69 cents per 12 ounces or 69 cents over 12 ounces. Or we can write it as 69 cents ratio 12 ounces. Both expressions mean the same thing, which is you pay 69 cents for every 12 ounce of corn. Rates are used by people every day, and it can be expressed as a quantity for one, such as 2 feet per second or $1 for a Coke, and we say it is a unit rate. A unit rate is a ratio of two different measurements where the second measurement is 1, or where we can simply say it is the amount for one item. For example, a rate of 180 miles in 3 hours can be written as 180 miles per 3 hours. When we want to turn this to a unit rate, meaning we want to find out how many miles you will travel in 1 hour, in other words, the denominator must be 1. All we do is simply divide. You divide the numerator by the denominator, and here we have 180 divided by 3, which gives us 60. In other words, the unit rate becomes 60 miles per hour, or 60 miles traveled in 1 hour. Now let's try this. You can go ahead, pause this video, and come back after solving. What is the unit rate of 120 students for every 3 buses? From this question, we know that we have 3 buses, okay? And 3 buses would contain a total of 120 students. And you're told to find the unit rate, meaning how many students would be in one bus. All we have to do, like I said, write it as a rate, which is 120 students per 3 buses. And in order for you to find a unit rate, you simply divide. And when we divide 120 by 3, the unit rate becomes 40 students, which means in one bus there would be 40 students. Now try the second one. If $5.5 can buy 5 pounds of potatoes, how much will 1 pound of potatoes cost? Go ahead, pause the video, come back after solve it. Now, one key thing when finding the unit price is to keep your money as your numerator, because you want to find the amount for one item, the amount for one quantity, okay? So if we write this as a rate, it becomes $5.5 per 5 pounds. LB is a unit for pounds. And then when we divide this, we're able to find the unit rate. 5.5 divided by 5 will give us 1.1, which means you will spend $1.1 or $1.10 for 1 pound or 1 pound of potatoes. There are various ways we can apply rates and unit rates. Let's consider this problem. Tanya works 60 hours every 3 weeks. At that rate, how many hours will she work in 12 weeks? Now you can go ahead and also find the hours she could work in 60 weeks, in 40 weeks, and so on and so forth. Well, how can we solve this question? All right, the problem here tells you the rate at which she works for every 3 weeks, which is 60 hours. In order to find the number of hours she will work in 12 weeks, all you need to do is write an equivalent ratio to 60 per 3 that has a second term of 12. Now this will make you remember equivalent fraction. All right. Now the first rate is 60 per 3. What would the second rate be where the denominator is 12? Equivalent fractions. What will you multiply to this denominator that will give you 12? Good. The answer is 4, which means you would also multiply the numerator by 4. Remember, equivalent fractions, whatever you do to the numerator, you must also do to the denominator. And when we multiply both numerator and denominators by 4, we have 240 over 12. That means that Tonya will work 240 hours in 12 weeks. Now we can also solve this in a different way, and this would involve your knowledge on how to write equations from expressions. How? Now, if we write this as a rate where you have 60 hours per 3 weeks, the question is asking you how many hours will she work in 12 weeks? How many hours? You don't know, and that means that will become, we can represent that as x because that's our unknown value, that's our variable there, which is x hours in 12 weeks. Now, when writing an equation, ensure that the numerators on both sides have the same units, okay? And the denominators on both sides have the same unit. 60 hours equals x hours. 3 weeks equals 12 weeks. Make sure that they're same units on both sides, okay? Now, how can we isolate this variable x hours? Cross multiply, or you can just multiply by 12. And when we multiply both sides by 12, x becomes 240, which is the same thing we got here. So either ways, you would still get the same answer, which means Tonya would work 240 hours in 12 weeks. Another way we can apply unit rates is to determine better deals when shopping. Now let's consider this example. You want to buy peanut butter, and there are two offers. One is a 40-ounce jar and the other is a 15-ounce jar. Two different sizes, two different quantity. Okay, the 40-ounce jar is being sold for $5.25 and the 15-ounce jar is being sold for $2.1. Now, you don't know which is a better deal. Irrespective of the size, it's important that we know which is a better deal, okay, before purchase. And one way we can do that is finding the unit price for both items and compare the unit prices. Then we can find which is cheaper. Now, in order to find the unit price for the very first one, which is the 40-ounce jar, like I said, all this puts your money as a numerator, and this becomes $5.25 divided by 40 ounce. And when we divide this, it becomes 0.13, which means that this jar of peanut butter is charging you $0.13 or 13 cents per ounce of peanut butter. Now, if we find a unit price for the second jar, which is $2.1 per 15 ounce, when we divide this, we would have 14 cents or $0.14 per ounce of peanut butter. Now, when we compare both unit prices, we obviously see here that 0.13 is cheaper or is less than 0.14. Hence, that makes the 14-ounce jar cheaper than buying the 15-ounce jar. And that means that the 40-ounce jar of peanut butter is a better deal in this case. Now, why don't you go ahead and try this short quiz that will be graded on this link. And then don't forget to keep practicing with the links provided below. Bye, and thanks for watching.